Hi everyone, welcome back to the Web3 channel. My name is Zach. In this video, we're looking at Mippo's tweet thread about why censorship, not inflation, will drive Bitcoin adoption in 2022 and beyond. Mippo, I believe, works on Blockworks, to be very clear, building Blockworks, so very interesting. And of course, Blockworks is an incredible source of information in the Web3 space. Let's jump into what's happening here and go through this tweet thread. It's a fairly long thread, and therefore I thought actually I looked through it and it was quite interesting information to be said. So let's go through it, and of course follow Mippo if you haven't already. Bitcoin's narrative has undergone several changes throughout the years. For one, we have peer-to-peer cash. 2015, we had payments. 2017, it was the inflation hedge. And 2020, store of value. The question is, why doesn't this narrative need to change? For me, it's because people understand the world through stories. Bitcoin doesn't need a narrative to be valuable. It's a hard, unchanging, uncensorable store of wealth. But we're humans and we like story. So every couple of years, Bitcoin gets a new one. Among other things, Bitcoin is a check against institutional abuse of power. Therefore, Bitcoin's narrative tends to gravitate towards where institutional overreach is most severe. In 2020, the most salient abuse of power came from the Fed and global central banks. 2020 was the year that the fear of currency debasement went mainstream. Government printed record amounts of money, flooding the world with liquidity and cheap debt. Eventually, people began to worry about inflation and negative real yields. That worry led them to Bitcoin. But inflation and financial repression are the symptoms, not the core problem. The real problem is that central banks were able to take such drastic unilateral action, and now global financial markets hang on the words and facial expressions of one man. It's a broken system. I realize that after saying a few tweets that I haven't mentioned something that's very important on this channel, that nothing in these videos should ever be considered financial advice and you should always do your own research. In other words, the core problem is the raw power of our monolithic institutions. The symptoms of that problem will change this year. CBs will fight inflation, negative yields will recede. So the question is, what will the new battlefield for institutional overreach look like? The answer unfortunately looks as though it will be censorship. The censorship is manifesting itself in two key areas: the financial system and social media and deplatforming. So let's dig into these. The financial system is being weaponized. At the highest level, financial exclusion has been a cornerstone of US foreign policy for a long time, i.e. sanctions. Recently, it's become a domestic tool of control, i.e. Operation Choke Point. The ongoing GoFundMe saga is the most recent and worrisome example of this. Donations for CVC, a peaceful protest by any measure, were shut down and removed. This is extremely concerning. Deplatforming is the new book burning. Last January, Twitter made history when it deplatformed sitting US President Trump. I don't want to get into politics, but there were lots of good reasons for the suspension, but it led to a slippery slope. 1 year later, we're seeing how slippery that slope was. Thousands of accounts, including good faith actors like Alex Berenson, have been banned. This also includes Dr. Malone, my apologies, whose early work contributed to the mRNA vaccine for allegedly spreading vaccine misinfo. The calls for deplatforming extend beyond social media. The most recent example of this is Joe Rogan and Spotify. A week ago, Neil Young removed his music from Spotify to protest vaccine misinformation. Now Spotify has a choice to make: keep Rogan or ban his work. Spotify is a company, so it will make a business decision. They have two stakeholders to weigh here. Creators: will removing Joe Rogan make them more or less attractive to artists? Subs: will removing Joe Rogan lead to more or less subscription revenue? Joe Rogan will force Spotify to decide between the two groups of people. The woke left dying on the hill of COVID, the libertarian right dying on the hill of censorship. The question becomes, who is the more valuable customer base? Today it's Spotify, but eventually every company will have its Joe Rogan moment. Companies will have to make a choice between appealing to their woke base and succumbing to increasing censorship versus emerging demographic that will push back. This is where Bitcoin comes in. Bitcoin has built one of the largest, most engaged communities in the world. This community cares about censorship resistance, libertarian ideals of freedom, minimal government interference. It's only a short amount of time before companies realize this if they haven't already. To be very clear again, because there are certain things in this thread that I'm already sort of ishing about, but at the same time it's a good thread. I'm just saying that this isn't all my own personal opinions. Consider Spotify. Let's say they keep Rogan on and lose part of their customer base. They will need a strategy to onboard new customers who are ideologically aligned with the choice they have made. Allowing customers to pay in Bitcoin seems like a good way to do that. This decision will extend beyond companies. US states are facing the same dilemma. Some are pushing back, whereas others like Texas are leaning in. El Salvador is writing the playbook for what countries may do in the future. Looking at, I think this looks like a BBC article, why China's Bitcoin miners are moving to Texas. Bitcoin will become a flag to unite people who don't stand for censorship. Companies, states, and countries that want to attract this community will adopt Bitcoin to show that they are ideologically on the same page. It will start as symbolic gesture, but then become more. This doesn't negate Bitcoin's utility as a store of value, but I think this is where Bitcoin's narrative will transition to, because the greatest threat in our society is not negative real rates, it is institutional overreach, censorship, and ultimately totalitarianism. For what it's worth, I hope I'm wrong. This world doesn't look great in this scenario, but if it all goes down like this, I'm glad we do have Bitcoin. My question to you after this are, what are your thoughts on this? Do you believe that censorship will be the driving factor for Bitcoin? Of course, when I say the driving factor, my guess is when it comes to this is that what Bitcoin allows, what Bitcoin does, will therefore be the driving factor towards censorship resistance. To be very clear, not everything I said in this video has been my own personal views. This is Mippo's views. I agree with some of it. I disagree with others of it. And I hope that, with that being said, this is the Web3 channel covering everything happening in the Web3 space from crypto, NFT, and metaverse news. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next Web3 video.